Hey guys, so with episode 4 of the Shaman King 2021 reboot, it's the episode that basically marks the introduction or reintroduction to those of us who have watched the original anime or read the manga of Tokageroh into this reboot, and I know for a fact I'm probably gonna get a lot of Tokageroh stans and fans after me for saying this, but to me, while there's always been a lot of aesthetic appeal from this character like Tokageroh, as far as the actual character himself goes, he's more or less always felt like one of the weaker points of the series to me, and it isn't just in comparison to the original anime, because when I started reading the manga, I thought my opinion would definitely change at that point, and while Tokageroh had well, there obviously was a lot more substance to Tokageroh's character overall in the manga. At the same, it's also one of the things where it's also one of those things where not a whole lot of my opinion has changed either, and I think it just boils down to the idea that any development Tokageroh gets seems to more favor Ryu's development than it does himself. Because spoiler alert, even though it is in the opening, this whole experience was basically the first step towards Ryu becoming a shaman, and Tokageroh becoming his guardian spirit. So yeah, it's one of those weird things where a lot of what we just saw, it's really only going to favor Ryu. But as far as Tokageroh's character, yeah, he's one of those characters that for me is just kind of stuck in kind of limbo as far as a character as far as a character himself, as far as development goes. Like any development he gets, it really only transfers over into Ryu. But he himself, yeah, he's just not my favorite character overall, frankly. Although I guess if I were to offer some manner of praise, I do over to pretty much Tokageroh. I do take Tokageroh more seriously as a threat here than I did in the original anime, even though the end result is more or less like the same. I mean, just the small addition of Tokageroh's of seeing Tokageroh's like pretty much aura and skeletal body was already enough of an addition to just add to the creep factor of his character. And I do like how we did get some actual backstory about the character this time around, whereas before we were just told like the cliff notes of his story and how he held a grudge against the Mitamaru for reasons. But here there is a little bit of tragedy to the character and how he's lived. Although Tokageroh is a baby, that shit is pure nightmare fuel. I'm just saying. Also, just a little bit of a quick side note. While we're talking about Tokageroh, his original voice, but his original voice actor, his original voice actor Wataru Takagi has basically returned to voice him. But what makes it even funnier now than when he first voiced the character is that since then he's basically also pretty much had a role in pretty much Diamond in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Diamond is Unbreakable as everyone's favorite sidekick. Everyone's favorite sidekick, Okayasu. So that just adds to the comedic effect of who voices Tokageroh now to me. But yeah, so overall, Tokageroh as a character, I like him on an aesthetic level, but yeah, as an actual character, he is kind of the weakest for me, frankly. Also, now this is something I haven't mentioned yet, but it definitely becomes something worth noting here, which is I didn't know if it was just the effect of taking directly from the manga for adaptation this time around or the performances, but I'm actually kind of finding myself a lot more attached to Ryu's gang in this reboot, and more attached to them as characters. I mean, if I remember correctly, their role is about the same as it was in the original, more or less. But I do still oddly feel more invested and attached to them here than than I did in the original anime, and I think it's just having to do with, and I think a lot of it has to do with the performances and how, for as minor a role as these characters serve, you can tell the actors themselves are still trying to get the most out of the experience. Whereas in the original, both English and Japanese, it felt like they were just kind of demonstrating the bare minimum of what they were required. But I don't know, maybe it's just me. I think I think when they really get down to it, it just comes down to the fact that I do feel the reboot is tapping more into the idea that Ryu and his friends are these like outcasts that live separate from everyone else, and the in always these like moving from place to place trying to find a place to call home. That in the end, they pretty much just they always find solace in each other's company. So it just kind of, I think it just that these added little details just build onto the bonds of the characters, I think. Also, for as much as I'm not a fan of Tokageroh himself, I do like how this time around he is more closely more closely tied to he's more closely tied to Mosuke's childhood, so that when Amidamaru is forced to make the ultimate choice of destroying Harasume to defeat Tokageroh, it does kind of give us the sense of Amidamaru indirectly handing out a bit of justice for Masuke's parents. And on top of that, though, just getting these like further little snippets of backstory really kind of emphasized the brutality of the era that Amidamaru came from, and how the only rules during that time were kill or be killed. So for as much as it was played for a joke that Amidamaru didn't recognize Tokageroh, it makes sense he wouldn't recognize him, seeing as how during those time, like both of them, like Midamaru was really only concerned about surviving and not giving much thought as to who he killed, or really either of them killed, really. But but it also touches on how now that both Midamaru and Tokageroh are ghosts and living in modern times, it does provide the opportunity in order for them to and just living in this more peaceful era somewhat, it does provide the opportunity for them to just kind of bury the hatchet and say, let's just start over. So yeah, I do like how it does kind of the backstory does kind of very much like emphasize that point that Amidamaru and Tokageroh, they aren't living in war times, so it isn't really necessary in order for them to pretty much in order to keep holding on to these grudges, so to speak. With that said, let's talk adaptation, because for the aside from kind of aside from once again doing what I had thought before of trimming the fat of the fight every now and then, the adaptation itself was pretty good. But the one thing that definitely stuck out to me, and this is something that may or may not affect people's enjoyment of the episode, is that Bridge kind of did something. Is that during this whole fight, the viewpoint of the possession when it came to Tokageroh and Ryu, it was constantly the viewpoint of the possession was constantly interchanging between Ryu and Tokageroh during this fight in the manga, but here there's a little bit of that as well, but it mostly sticks to Ryu. And I think the reason as to why Bridge did this and to why they didn't interchange between the characters as often as they did in the manga is simply because of budget. They just wanted to they pretty much needed as much of the extra amount of the budget as they could. So if they were going to cut down on anything, it was just the interchanging perspective, I think. So yeah, in that sense. But yeah, I guess the reason as to why it wasn't as interchanging as much as it was in the manga is because of budget constraints, and they just didn't want to stress the budget on this one thing, I guess. But yeah, guys, that's all I got for this review. If you enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe. Twitter, Annulist, Crunchyroll, and be sure to hit the bell in order to get notifications. So, but Death Knight of Anime, signing off. Later, guys.